When you get a minute, sooner than later, make sure you subscribe to Wellness University.
The differences between a doula and a doctor or a midwife is something that is often really, really muddled. An obstetric physician or a midwife or whoever you choose to have as your care provider during pregnancy, that's just what they do. They look after the health of the mother and the baby. They provide actual physical delivering of the baby during labor. That is not the role of a doula. A doula is there during all of those things, but oftentimes doulas get moms who aren't sure yet who they want as their care provider. And so we're even helping mom to narrow down that decision, to decide what care provider and what birthing environment is even right for her. I am not there to sway her decisions. I'm there to provide evidence-based information. I'm there to provide education about, what's happening in mom's body. But it's my job, if I accept this mom as my client, to support her in her decisions.
Today, we're going to be talking about Black maternal health, as it is Black Maternal Health Week, which runs from April 11th to April 17th, and we have a special guest for you today. Her name is Tennille Bailey, and I'm going to take a second to read her bio. Tennille Bailey is a South Jersey girl living and working in a Maryland world as a maternal health professional who is dedicated to eliminating maternal and child health disparities experienced by Black women, children, and families. Currently, she serves as a maternal health coordinator in Baltimore Safer Children Cities initiative funded by Merck for Mothers. Tennille received her graduate degree in biomedical science from Rowan University Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences and her Bachelor of Arts degree in Individualized Studies in Biology from Fairleigh Dickinson University. Tennille's work is currently concentrated on decreasing incidences of both maternal and infant morbidity and mortality and the impact they have on African American women and families in the state of Maryland, specifically and in the United States. Tennille aspires to have a meaningful impact on marginalized communities from birth to adulthood. She is a biologist, certified breastfeeding specialist, birth doula, yoga instructor, and herbalist, and has assisted with 20 plus births. She also works and serves with organizations that center community health, birth equity, Black maternal health, and health policy, such as the National Association to Advance Black Birth and the Reproductive Health Equity Alliance of Maryland. Tennille endeavors to use education, storytelling for change, and empowerment to amplify the voices and experiences of Black birthing people.
You get a minute, sooner than later, make sure you subscribe to Wellness University.
Hey guys, when you get a chance, subscribe to Wellness University on all platforms. Welcome, Tennille.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you so much for just having me on your podcast. This is so exciting, and I'm really, really happy to be a guest.
Thank you for agreeing to do this. This is a topic that we have talked about for some time, something of interest to both of us. Me personally, I had a midwife for both of my pregnancies, and I really want to educate other people about why it's beneficial to have a midwife.
And you are our first guest. I'm sorry, what did you say, Tennille?
No, I was just saying midwifery and doula work go hand in hand. So there's definitely benefits to having both members on your birth team.
That ties me into my first question. What exactly is the difference between doula and midwife? Is there a difference? And does one specialize in something over the other?
A difference between the two, and the misconception is that the two are one and the same, and the terms are typically used interchangeably, but there is a difference between a doula and a midwife. So a doula is a birth companion. Doulas offer physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual support to birthing people and their families. Well, as far as a doula is concerned, you can have a doula for any phase of the childbearing continuum. So you can have a preconception doula, you can have a birth doula, you can have a postpartum doula. There are even grief and bereavement doulas that help families navigate pregnancy loss, infant loss, child loss. So just to be clear, a doula is a birth companion and usually works in tandem with a midwife. A midwife is a medical professional. They have gone to school. They have earned the credentials to be able to physically catch your baby. So a lot of women find themselves seeking out midwives to provide their care. And midwives aren't just limited to births. Midwives can also provide you with healthcare and services throughout your lifetime. So you have a lot of women that seek care from midwives as opposed to OBGYNs. You can go to a midwife for your well woman exams and visits. You can receive birth control from a midwife. You can have checkups with your midwife. And then they're also there when you decide to grow your family and become pregnant.
Thank you for that clarity.
Wow. Yes. I mean, I didn't know there were so many different aspects of a doula, all the different phases. And thank you for clearing up the difference between a midwife and a doula. Now, how did you get into this space? How did you decide this is what I want to do? I want to be a doula.
Quite by accident. So what initially got me interested in being a part of the birthing space was witnessing the birth of my best friend's oldest son. And I replay it because his birthday is coming up in June. So this is around the time of the year where I start thinking, man, has it really been that long ago? But everything from receiving the text message like, hey, on our way to the hospital, we've got action, to me rolling out of bed, throwing some clothes on, grabbing something to eat on the way to the hospital, and then once getting there, just being there for my friend from the moment we all gathered. It was me, my friend, obviously, her husband, and her parents. And we were all in the hospital room together up until she gave birth. So just being able to provide her with support, not only as a friend, but also as someone who was genuinely invested in her health and well-being and just wanting her to have a positive birth experience in the hospital. It definitely lit a fire within me, and seeing her son actually being born. So I think that's the most exciting thing about this work for me personally, is actually watching these babies come earthside. And biologically, it happens, as far as the baby coming through the birth canal, or babies coming into the world via cesarean. So even though medically and biologically the procedures are pretty standard, on a spiritual and emotional level, it's something different and something exciting and something beautiful each and every time. So from there, I sought out trainings that were being offered as far as doula trainings in the area. And it took me a little while. Life kind of gets in the way. You express interest in something and you kind of obsess about it. And then adulting and life get in the way and it derails you for a minute. And then you eventually find your way back to it. So finding my way back to it, I was providing yoga services for a sister who was expecting. And she asked me if I was a doula, and I said no. And she asked me why. And I was just like, I had no answer for her. And she said, I really think that you should look into becoming a doula because you're awesome with kids. My daughter loves you, and you just have a way about you when it comes to making other people feel seen and feel comfortable. So that was the added motivation to get back into looking for trainings, and there was one being offered in DC, and that was the one that I participated in. It was being offered through the International Center for Traditional Childbearing, which now that doula program is housed under Shafia Monroe Consulting. And in October of 2016, I completed the training and pretty much hit the ground running, just being of service to women and their families.
You said something that really stuck out to me. You said that watching the childbirthing process is both spiritual and emotional, and that's something beautiful. And I've always said that going through that experience, birthing my children, it is one of the most painful and most beautiful experiences I've ever had in my entire life. It's just like experiencing a child coming to fruition and actually seeing what happens after you nourish this child for 9 months and then they're finally here on this earth is so beautiful.
It really is. It makes it all worth it. And believe it or not, your body forgets about the pain. Every single pregnancy, because we wonder, after going through something like that, after going through childbirth, in your mind, you're like, I'll never do that again. That was pain unlike anything I ever felt. And yet, we have folks that become pregnant more than once, and you wonder, well, why is that? You said that it was the worst pain ever. And it's because, physiologically, your body forgets. Your body forgets that pain that you experienced during childbirth. And, so that goes to explain why the process, the cycle just continues. We forget about that pain because at the end of the day, seeing your child and being able to hold your child and deepen that bond, it makes it all worth it.
Absolutely. I have to agree with Ash too. With three kids that I birthed, and I did forget. You quickly become reminded. But
I totally forgot.
It's a beautiful experience, though, for sure. So you did mention all the different phases of child rearing and how a doula can be involved in them. Have you worked in each of them, like grief and loss and pre-conception in each phase, or do you mainly stick to like one?
So my main wheelhouse is birth doula. So I serve women and their families during their pregnancies, of course during labor and delivery, and then I do check-ins during the postpartum phase. Have I dabbled in each of the different phases of the childbearing continuum? Yes. I've helped sisters as far as preconception is concerned, just through providing education and herbal consult. I've also assisted women and families in the postpartum phase. And then also when it comes to bereavement and loss, there was a sister that I was able to just hold space for and provide resources because she unfortunately had a child loss, not an infant or a pregnancy loss. Unfortunately, one of her children passed away at the age of 10. So just being able to be there for that sister was it definitely it kind of rewired me a bit and changed something in my approach. Women, when they seek me out and when I get an opportunity to speak with them and just get to know more about them and their pregnancy and just their health, you hear a lot of stories. You hear a lot of stories about previous pregnancies. You hear a lot of stories about what it took for them to get to that, to get to that point, to get to the point where they're expecting and they're with child. Everything from miscarriage to infertility challenges such as fibroids, PCOS, endometriosis. You hear it all, And every story is different. Every story carries a different level of gravity with it, and it definitely reminds you of your why when in this work, especially when you start to get tired or start to get discouraged. Just being able to hold space for sisters and being able to be that open ear, to be that caring hand or that steady shoulder for them. It definitely keeps you going in this work.
I actually had a young woman come to me about a week ago and express interest in becoming a doula. She said she read an article and she thinks that's the direction that she wants to go in. Can you tell us, are there any challenges that you have faced while seeking this profession or while being in this profession?
As far as challenges seeking becoming a doula, I didn't face any barriers. As far as challenges while acting as a practicing doula, yes. And that question is quite timely because as we're living in times of COVID, last year brought about a lot of different changes that not only we were going through as a people, as a society, but also just the healthcare system. So I'm sure a lot of us are well aware that hospitals had to pivot and change their policies as they pertain to support people that were allowed to be present when someone was in labor and delivery. So for doulas, that meant any number of different things depending on where you reside. I can definitely say in the state of Maryland, the policies were pretty stringent to where doulas were not permitted to be in labor and delivery with their clients. They were only allowed one support person, and usually a client would choose their partner, which makes perfect sense. But at the same time, you have to think of the flip side of the coin as far as what if the person in labor and delivery was unpartnered or uncoupled. The alternative was them giving birth alone, not just in Maryland, but this very well was the story in a number of different states across the country. So when you're working as a doula, when you're serving as a doula, and you come up on hospital policies that regard you as a visitor or as a guest and not an essential member of the birth team or of the healthcare team, that can be difficult.
COVID changed so much for so many different professions. And I know you spoke about the joy of it all, of being a doula and the services you provide. But as you were speaking, I was kind of relating it to working as a counselor and as a therapist, and it can bring you so much joy to see the whole progress from beginning to end. But it can also be very taxing on the mind, taxing on the body, and just take a toll overall. And we have to be sure that we're caring for ourselves. And with this being that type of podcast about just overall wellness, how would you share, how can you share with us how you take care of yourself after experiencing, being side by side with your clients in that process?
So I will say that births are a marathon. I think the longest birth that I've ever assisted with was 32 plus hours.
Wow.
And part of the reason why I got into the work is because I have a very strange stamina for this kind of stuff. I can be on my feet for a while. I can trick myself into staying awake for a while. I can pretty much push myself physically to the limit for my client, especially when labor and delivery are concerned. So births are a marathon. They're unpredictable. So after a birth happens and once mother and baby are bonding, they're safe, they're healthy, they're happy, they're whole, and the doula goes home. Self-care can look very different depending on just what your personal jam is. I know for me personally, when I get home after a birth, some of the first things I do are either get in the shower or get in the bath, get something in my belly, and I try my hardest to confine myself to my bed as much and as long as possible. It's like, look, I need a day. I'm just going to rest. I'm going to be under these covers. And me and Netflix, we're just going to become real close and we're going to get reacquainted. So, so that, self-care can look like that after a birth. Self-care can look like me just taking time to do the things that bring me joy, and that's reading. Anyone who knows me personally and follows me on these internet streets know that I'm a bookworm. So being able to just have some quiet time to read and to really get into a good story, get swept away by a good book, that's self-care as well. And luckily, I work in a profession that recognizes that and values the importance of self-care and just individuals operating at their optimum. So, there have been times where I've asked my supervisor, hey, can I just have a day? Or just know that you can reach me. I'm just not going to be visibly accessible. You're not gonna, if I'm on the Zoom, my camera's gonna be off. And just being blessed and fortunate to work with individuals that understand and that value the work that's being done. That's self-care as well.
Amazing. So in the media, we are seeing a lot more about racial disparity in healthcare, especially amongst African American women. How can we, as African American women or minorities across the board, how can we advocate for ourselves when we are in a situation where we feel like we are being denied certain privileges?
Absolutely, and we're not minorities. We are minoritized.
You are absolutely right.
We are minoritized individuals. There's nothing minor about us. So if we find ourselves in a situation where we feel like we're not being seen, we're not being heard, or our experience isn't being valued, I encourage us to document everything.
Get a minute sooner than later. Make sure you subscribe to Wellness University.
Hey guys, when you get a chance, subscribe to Wellness University on all platforms.
There is this belief in our culture that when you're pregnant, you need to go and sign up under the authority of someone. And that is not what that relationship should really look like with you and your doula, with you and your care provider, none of that. The mom is at the helm of this ship. It's mom's show, and we're all there simply to support mom in the decisions that she is making.
We're back with Wellness University, where we learn, heal, and chill. Again, I'm Ashley Todd.
And I'm Jen Owens.
And we are joined by Miss Tennille Bailey, who is a maternal health professional.
Now, Tennille, you wrote an article that was published by Mama Glow, which is based out of New York, and it was created by Latham Thomas, correct? Okay. Yes. And the article is called American Midwifery is Black Women's History and Our Futures. Okay, so Ashley and I were talking about this article, and what we realized after reading it is that we really don't know anything about this.
Absolutely not.
Yes. So it was enlightening, and we just want you to talk a little bit more about the article, and how it came about, and why you decided to write on it.
Sure. So to give like a Reader's Digest overview of the article, so when we think about midwifery in the United States currently, and more specifically, Black midwifery. So Black practitioners and practitioners of color make up a little less than 2% of the profession here in the United States. And that is a stark contrast to the early and mid 1900s, when the majority of the babies being born were being born into the hands of midwives, and more specifically, grand midwives. They're often referred to as granny midwives. Sometimes that terminology can be demeaning, so we say grand midwives because the work that they were doing was so grand in scale that it can't be quantified. However, once the practice started to become medicalized, the Shepard-Towner Act really played a role in the erasure of Black midwifery. So basically, it basically created a stage where, in order to practice midwifery, you had to participate in classes, get proper credentialing. They basically wanted to make the practice more professional, more sanitary, more acceptable. And in their eyes, beforehand, the practice of midwifery was unsanitary. It was barbaric. It was unprofessional, and in their eyes, contributing to infant mortality rates. So we know that that was not true. But a lot of the midwives, particularly Black midwives, they found themselves in a position where they couldn't afford to take these classes, to participate in these programs. So they continued to serve poor rural residents in the South, and women who could afford to be seen by physicians were seen in practices and were giving birth in hospitals. So we went from a beautiful tradition and practice to, by the mid 1900s, most of the births occurring in hospitals. And we're seeing the effects of that even to this day. I just said that less than 2% of the profession is made up of Black midwives and other midwives of color, which is unacceptable, because we know that the rates of maternal and infant mortality and morbidity can be decreased drastically when their care is being provided by individuals that look like them. We know that representation matters. So that's pretty much what the article entailed. And also there was mention of the Black Birthing Bill of Rights. I mentioned that earlier. It was created and launched by the National Association to Advance Black Birth, and it's a collection of 20 rights that we feel birthing individuals are entitled to when they find themselves within their childbearing years. And it also helps to guide government programs, hospitals, maternity providers, in the hopes that they'll transform their policies, procedures, and practices.
So before we get into the Birthing Bill of Rights a little bit more, 2% of us in any profession is unacceptable. How do we encourage others or support others through getting into this profession, to actually being a doula and seeing our faces more in the healthcare profession?
Yeah. We have to invest our dollars in the changes we want to see. We have to provide avenues for young people that want to pursue midwifery as a profession. We have to provide them with scholarships and other opportunities that are going to make it easier for them to get their feet in the door. Same with doulas and other birth workers. I'm talking about lactation consultants, placenta encapsulators, childbirth educators. So we need to invest our dollars, and we need to invest our research and also our collective efforts into the changes that we want to see. So if we want to see more of us in midwifery, if we want to see more of us within the birthing space, then we have to clear the way for one another. And if one of us makes it in, we can't be afraid to reach our hands back and help others get to where we're at.
Yes, absolutely. And another important part about that too is that we need to be aware that these services are available to us and how to obtain these services, because I have never been introduced to the idea of having a midwife or a doula in pregnancy, and I had my first child young, so I can understand that part of it. But as I got older, I still was very ignorant to the fact that this was an option for me out there. So yeah, we need to spread the word about midwifery and having a doula and the benefits of that, and the benefits of your provider looking like you, understanding you, appreciating you, because you are subscribing to their service, paying for their service. So to be appreciated is important by your provider. And it talks about that, like you said, you want to talk about the Bill of Rights. It's just, the Bill of Rights was so, when I read over them, I'm like thinking to myself, wow, this seems very obvious. But the truth of the matter is, these things are not happening for many patients that walk into these facilities.
Absolutely. There are patients walking into hospitals and practices and other facilities that are not being heard, are not being respected at the bare minimum, and are not being seen. Their experiences are being written off as not priorities. And when you said that the Bill of Rights, it just seemed obvious. It just seemed like common sense. That's because it is. That's because the rights are obvious. It's common sense to treat someone the way that you would want a provider to treat your loved one.
I have found through experience that women of color,
specifically, they don't know that they have these rights. Therefore, they don't exercise these rights. And even when talking to people who say, well, I'm just going to wait for my healthcare professional to tell me what I should do, or I'm going to wait for my doctor to say this or that. I feel like us as women, we have to know what we believe in and what we want for ourselves, what we want for our bodies, what we want for our children. I know for me, I chose a midwife because I didn't want to take any medication during childbirth. I wholeheartedly believe I wanted to go natural. I didn't want any chemicals in my body. And that was, one of my beliefs. But I feel like as women, we have to know going in what we deserve, what we're asking for, what we want, and how we're going to go about advocating for ourselves.
Absolutely. And the Black Birthing Bill of Rights, the common message is we want to let Black birthing individuals know that you have the right, first and foremost, to birth the way that you want to birth.
Mm-hmm.
And that would basically be a way to just sum up all 20 of those rights. You have the right to birth the way that you want to birth.
Absolutely. That brings me to one of the rights talks about obstetric violence. And when I read that, I was like blown away. I'm like, wait a minute, what does that mean? If you could go a little bit more into that, because it sounds very scary, and I just want to give the listeners like an idea of what that could look like.
So obstetric violence is definitely very scary, and it can range anywhere from just dismissal and neglect to not offering a patient pain medication because you feel that they have tougher skin and they can withstand the pain more than another birthing body.
That's one of the main things that I did hear about when it came to maternal health and the death of women after childbirth, was that their pain level wasn't taken seriously, and their complaints weren't being taken seriously.
Yes, absolutely. And it's just insane that we have to even have this as a topic of conversation. If I'm telling you that I'm in pain, if I'm telling you that I have a headache that won't go away, as my provider, you should be giving me advice and resources to remedy the situation. If you dismiss me, if you write me off, essentially blood is on your hands. If something happens to me, blood is on your hands. And this happens to individuals regardless of their socioeconomic status, education level. I mean, we've seen near misses occur with celebrities, more specifically Beyonce, Serena Williams. So if they experience dismissal and neglect at the level that they're at,
Right.
what's keeping us safe?
So there are some jewels that you shared with us while we were on break that I want you to share with our audience when you talked about the difference between baby blues, postpartum depression, and postpartum psychosis. Can you break down what those are and how they can be experienced?
Sure. So, full disclosure and disclaimer, I am not a medical professional, and I am giving this information just based off of previous work with women and families. So baby blues is that very brief and intermittent sadness or weepiness that you can experience at any time during your pregnancy. I had a client that experienced it during their second trimester and was feeling more like themselves during their third trimester. So that's normal. And then in the postpartum period, just being overcome and overwhelmed with the emotion of being a new parent, having this new baby that you are now responsible for, and just making those life adjustments to accommodate the new baby. A lot of that, it can be a lot. It can weigh on you, and it can result in bouts of sadness. So that would be baby blues. Postpartum depression takes it up a step further, where you're starting to withdraw from your daily activities. You may even start to withdraw from your child. You start to take a step away from the things that one, bring you joy and happiness, and two, just support your basic well-being and needs. So not showering, not eating, not nourishing yourself properly, just not taking those moments out for yourself. Irritability is another thing that we may see in postpartum depression. So snapping on your partner, yelling at your baby because your baby is crying, and for the life of you, you don't know why. So you may even find yourself like lashing out at your baby, and they can't tell you what's wrong. So postpartum depression usually requires more time and attention, either from a postpartum doula or healthcare provider or a mental health professional, and some mothers do need medication to manage. Now, psychosis is when we start to get the suicidal ideations, when we start to see mothers self-harming, when we start to see mothers doing harm to their babies, their partners. When you start to see very strange and erratic behavior being displayed by the mother, which again would require attention from a healthcare provider, mental health professional, and definitely some form of therapy or medication in order to nudge the needle back to the mother feeling more like herself.
Now, in listening to you, I really wish I would have had a doula during my pregnancies, especially my second pregnancy. I can remember having those baby blues, thinking I was going insane. I'm thinking I have full-blown depression. This is never going to end. I know I had anxiety. One, because my baby came 2 weeks later than he was supposed to. And I'm like, why are you not here yet? and afterwards, I can remember a time where he was crying, probably like the first or second day I got him home. And then I just started crying too. And we just sat and cried together. And I'm like, I don't know if this is normal, but this is what I'm experiencing, and we just going to do it together. But I feel like if I would have had somebody to talk to, then maybe I could have got my emotions out in a very healthy way instead of having to do it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and mothers, they just have to be comfortable with asking for help, especially in the postpartum period. The postpartum period is when, unfortunately, a lot of things can happen to a mother. So, mothers, please ask for help if you feel like you need help. Talk to someone if you feel like you need to talk to someone. The saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, guess what? It takes a village to raise a mother sometimes, because when your baby is born, you have to realize that you're being reborn. You're being reborn into a completely different manifestation of yourself when you give birth to a child. It took 9 months for that child to grow, and guess what? It took 9 months for you to get to this point of embracing and being in the swing of motherhood. So that same village that it takes to raise a child, sometimes it takes a village to mother a mother, and that's something else that we have to become familiar with and comfortable with as Black women. Just giving ourselves the permission and extending ourselves the grace to mother ourselves and to accept mothering from others.
Absolutely. You just said a word on asking for help.
Right? And not only being vulnerable enough to ask for help, but accept the help that's extended to you. Because I know a lot of times, I'm sure I've been in a position where help was extended to me. And I chose this role of, I got it, I can do this, it's not really your problem, you shouldn't have to worry yourself about it. And instead I created suffering for myself and for whatever else was going on at that time, whether it was being a new mother or whatever the case may be. We get it's so ingrained in us to just stand on your own 2 feet, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You got it. You're got to be independent, and no, you don't. No, you don't. Help is a blessing. Help is normal, and we need to normalize that.
And also being vulnerable is normal too, and I think we don't express that enough.
I agree.
That it's okay to express your emotions. It's okay to feel how you feel and sit in that.
I agree. Yeah, always gotta have this happy, positive outlook.
Right.
I'm great, and you're not.
You're everything but.
Right.
Give yourself permission to trade in your cape for a blanket sometimes.
I have a friend that is she's becoming a new mom in the next few months, and she expressed that she feels out of place at times because she feels like she's not where she's supposed to be in life, and she's about to have this baby. So she's seeing everybody around her do these great things in their professions, and she's at a standstill. What advice would you give to her on that aspect, but also just as a new mom in general?
In her case in particular, just remind her that comparison is the thief of joy, and stay off of social media, stay off the internet. We all have those individuals that we follow who, and we're talking about maternal health, we're talking about motherhood. So we all have those individuals that we follow where they make motherhood look real easy. They make it look lovely and sexy. And look, everything is organic this and cold pressed that, and just the finest of organic cottons and their children, And it's wonderful. And you know what? I tip my hat to them and I follow them. But you have to, you have to, you have to step away. You have to step away and you have to get off of social media and remind yourself that your experience is not their experience. And your experience is not your mother's experience. Your experience is not your sister's or your auntie's or your cousin's experience. Every birth that I have attended and that I've served has been different because every woman is different. Every journey to get a child earthside is different, and every journey past labor and delivery is going to be different. So please let your friend know that comparison is just going to take all of her joy away if she allows it. And take a step away from social media, because most of the time we're only seeing people at their best on social media. We're only getting a portion of the story. And she's a whole human out here living a whole human experience, about to give birth to a whole other human that's going to carry its own experience. So just let her know that her experience is beautiful and it's sacred and it's uniquely her own and it's valuable, and she should treat it as such. She needs to love on herself. She needs to surround herself with individuals that are going to pour into her and are going to provide her with the time and the space to really just ground and center into her upcoming motherhood, this new chapter of life that she's about to step into.
Thank you for that. I'm going to
edit this and send this part just to her so she can watch it.
She can listen to it over and over. Yes, good idea. What a gift. I love it.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ash.
Another question I had, just around support. Often we see people going into this situation with their partner or maybe a family member, and they're not really sure how they're supposed to support their family member, but they just know that they have to be there, whether they were asked to be there or because they're the father, what have you. How can one support a mother when giving birth?
So many different ways. And I tell my clients that I'm not only a doula for them, but I'm a doula for their partners as well. So part of my services and part of my end goals with every client is to make sure that their partners receive the education and resources needed to provide optimal support to their to the birthing individual. So that's just something that I do. But how can partners and friends and family members provide support? So many different ways. As far as labor and delivery is concerned, there are so many ways to provide comfort measures and pain management. And we've seen it in videos and in movies, as far as hand holding, playing around with different positioning just to see what feels comfortable and what feels best during labor and delivery. Also, just giving the birthing individual the permission to feel all of their feelings and letting them know that they're valid. That's huge. That's huge. Look, your partner is not a raving lunatic because they want ice cream with a pickle on the side with some caramel drizzled over top at 3 a.m. They're not a raving lunatic. And that's a very stereotypical example, but it's just letting you know that pregnancy, while unpredictable and beautiful, it can also be a crazy time. It can be a real crazy time, and emotions and hormones are high, and you don't know what person you're gonna get from day to day. And just knowing that they're receiving the support that tells them their feelings are valid and that they have individuals in their corner that's definitely support. In the postpartum period, support can look like helping out with laundry and other housework, bringing cooked meals to the home, holding the baby while the mother showers, while the mother runs an errand or takes a walk. And a lot of postpartum doulas, that's what they do. They come into the home and they provide that extra support that a family may need while they're navigating the new normal of having a new baby in the home. So again, support can look very different for everyone.
All of my kids are getting doulas.
You get a doula. Yes. So I'm wondering now, because we know who physicians report to, right? They have a board and things of that nature. But if a doula was not up to par, or you had a complaint about your doula, is that something that could be reported to a board or anything like that? Or is it just a between you and that person type of situation?
So basically, the field when it comes to doulas is quite unregulated. So if you have an issue with your doula, of course you take that up with your doula. You want to take that up with them, and the two of you need to come to some sort of agreement, some sort of common or middle ground. But you're absolutely right as far as physicians and even midwives that work within hospitals. If you have a complaint, then obviously you can go over their heads and voice your complaints. But with doulas, that's something that you would definitely have to work out one-on-one with the person that you're receiving support and services from, or lack thereof.
Right.
So when I do get the doulas for my kids, right, when they decide to have kids, what am I looking for? What can help me say, you know what, this person is skilled enough, or has done enough trainings besides just the vibe, because the vibe is so important. Mm-hmm. But besides that, what else am I looking for to make sure I'm making an informed decision?
Yeah, so interviewing your doula or any member that you want on your birth team is really important. And aside from vibe, you'll want to ask questions like, how many births have you assisted with? How long have you been doing this? It may be an annoying question, but you still want to ask it. What got them into doing this work? What got them into wanting to be a member of the birth space? You also may want to ask them what their stances are on some current events as they pertain to maternal and child health. Ask them if they belong to any organizations. Ask them what they like to do in their spare time, because while you want a doula that is skilled and that is nurturing and is invested in you and your family's wholeness, you also want to know that they're pouring into themselves, because a doula that is experiencing burnout is not going to be any good to you or your family.
It's just like your therapist.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I love that part back when you said you take a day sometimes just to gather yourself, get yourself together, practice that self-care. I think that's more of what mental health professionals should do. Mm-hmm. Therapists can get burnt out as well. We talk to people all day, every day. We're processing, we're giving advice, we're giving suggestions. And it can become draining.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And it's just so important, because burnout is real in any field. But when you're working with people, when you're in a field that is dedicated to people and to their general health and well-being, it can take a lot from you. You can experience a lot of what's called compassion fatigue or provider fatigue. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to be able to practice your own forms of self-care, and also exercising the magic of the word no. If someone seeks you out and seeks out your services, and let's say, for example, you're completely booked, or let's just say you don't have it in you to take on another client, very kindly and gently tell that person no, but let them know that there's a period at the end of that no, but also let them know that you are more than happy to point them in the direction of other individuals or other resources that they can take advantage of. There have been times where I've been sought out by pregnant folks, and I've had to let them know, I would absolutely love to assist with your birth, but I'm all booked, or this is a really busy time for me with work because I have a 9-to-5 in addition to this. So being able to say, hey, but I know this really awesome sister who's also local, and let's get in touch with her and see if she has availability on her calendar.
Absolutely.
So, just being able to say no, but at the same time pivot, so that way you're taking care of yourself and still being at service to someone.
That is definitely a word I needed to hear
today. Tadil, thank you. You are so knowledgeable. You have definitely dropped some jewels on us that have not only helped us, but I know will help other people that listen to this podcast.
Yes.
This was amazing.
Yes, I really enjoyed the conversation, learned a lot of things. I'm going to take my cape off and get me a blanket too. So like Ashley said, I think you dropped a lot of gems, but this is a topic that I feel like still needs a lot of publicity. So I hope that we do it a service and we get it out there.
It needs a lot of attention. It needs a lot of investment. It needs a lot of effort, and from the community on up, because community health is really what's going to be reflective of the nation's health. And if our communities are suffering, then more than likely our nation is suffering as a whole. So we definitely need to concentrate our efforts more effectively. And we need to see ourselves more. We need to see ourselves more in the space. We mentioned books earlier, as far as that being a form of my self-care. And just something as simple as a pregnant woman seeing herself in some of these books that are extremely helpful during the birth journey, that means the world to a lot of sisters. I mean, we have so many written resources, as far as pregnancy and birth and the child's first few years and parenting. But where are those books that speak to the Black experience with pregnancy, with child rearing, and with parenthood? There needs to be more. There needs to be more books. There needs to be more representation of Black pregnancy, Black birth, Black motherhood, Black fatherhood, Black families in general. So,
do you have a
recommendation for mother? Look, I know
like
her
she was
book
reading
sales
that book right
online. I know she has a book.
I have recommendations on top of recommendations. If you will humor me.
I told you she's reading for a book.
This is
yes.
Sis, You're Pregnant by Shanika Boswell. This is the newest addition to the Black pregnancy canon, and this book is written. Basically, if you were having a conversation with your best friend, it would be this book. And this book has so much information that you just can't Google. So this is excellent. And there are so many others that are really great. I highly recommend Black Pregnant and Loving It. This is a really great resource, and it gives a month-by-month guide to your pregnancy. Welcoming Spirit Home, and this is ancient African teachings to celebrate children and community. This is great to read before you get pregnant, and very, very good to read while you're pregnant and just forming that bond with your child. So many books, you guys. Having Your Baby, okay, by Dr. Hilda Hutchinson.
Okay.
Wow.
Mama's Little Baby.
The whole library.
Girl.
Yes. Last but not least, the Black Parenting book. A lot of folks don't know that this book exists. It does. And, you know, a lot of our parents have said, you know, there's no how-to guide. There's no guidebook on how to be a parent. And while there's not, we're going to take help in any way that we can.
Absolutely. We're going to get a guide.
Yes, Tennille, thank you for those book recommendations. We are definitely going to have them in the notes for the show because we need to take a peek at them and we need to let the community know about them too. So if people are looking to reach you, what are some of your contacts, your social media handles, things like that?
Absolutely. So if you or someone you know is pregnant and resides in the DMV area, more specifically Maryland, because that's where I reside, so that DC metro area and going into the state of Maryland, feel free to shoot me an email, and that's going to be rootedwombs@gmail.com. All one word, rootedwombs@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm at Tennille_Michelle. And you can also find me on LinkedIn because I, if anything, am professional. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Just type in Tennille Bailey and I should pop right up. The proper spelling of my name is Tenneele, and Bailey is spelled the way that it sounds.
It is heartbreaking to know that this is coming to an end. I have wholeheartedly enjoyed this conversation.
Tennille, we thank you for sharing this space with us. We're praying for your continued success, and we support you in all that you do.
Absolutely. Thank you for being our first guest. And I feel like you might be wearing some merch because I see purple merch. Let's go! Thank you for your support.
Thank you so much. This has been a really great way to spend the afternoon, and I'm over the moon that I'm your first guest, and I really just appreciate the invitation and the opportunity, and I hope that this podcast episode is a blessing and a help to someone.
I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us at Wellness University. Thank you for joining us for our first podcast, and we hope you come back for more gems and learning about wellness overall, because this is where we learn, heal, and chill.
Good night. When you get a minute, sooner than later, make sure you subscribe to Wellness University.
Cut.
When you get a minute, sooner than later, make sure you subscribe to Wellness University.